All right, let's dive into the story of one of the most fascinating and frankly controversial figures from India's fight for independence, Bhagat Singh. And what's so compelling about him is that his story isn't just about kicking the British out. No, it's about a complete, radical vision for what society should look like. And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? For almost a century, people have been asking this question. The British, of course, labeled him a terrorist. But for millions of others, he was a visionary, a hero, way ahead of his time. So which is it? Well, as we're about to see, the real story is so much more complex, and honestly, way more interesting than that simple black and white. Okay, Section 1. A revolutionary is forged. So you gotta wonder, how does a young guy from Punjab become this icon of revolution? Well, it all goes back to the world he was born into and the moments that absolutely shaped him.
So you can see here, he was basically born into the fight. His family was full of freedom fighters. But the real catalyst? 1919, that horrific massacre at Jallianwala Bagh. That was it. That was the point of no return for him. From then on, he was done with nonviolent protest. He started seeking out revolutionary groups who were ready for real action right now. I mean, just try to picture this. He's only 12 years old, and he goes to the site of this massacre, where hundreds of unarmed, peaceful protesters were just mowed down by British troops. Seeing the ground stained with the blood of his own people, that changes a person. It radicalized him on a level that's hard to even imagine. It became deeply personal, and it absolutely convinced him that just waiting and hoping for change wasn't going to cut it anymore.
All right, Section 2, beyond mere freedom. And this is so crucial to understand. For him, this wasn't just about fighting against the British Empire. He was fighting for something. He had this incredibly specific and really radical idea of what a truly free India should actually be.
You've probably heard this phrase before, right? Inqilab Zindabad. It literally means long live the revolution. Now, he didn't coin the phrase, but he and his fellow revolutionaries made it famous. They turned it into this powerful anthem, a rallying cry that you'd hear everywhere, from the streets to the courtrooms. And for Bhagat Singh, it meant so much more than just political change. It meant turning the entire social order upside down. And he actually spelled this out himself. He said, this isn't about a cult of the bomb and pistol. Those were just tools. The real revolution, the one he was fighting for, was about ending the entire system, a system he saw as built on deep, manifest injustice. He was talking about tearing down everything built on inequality and exploitation.
And this is where you see the huge gap between his vision and the mainstream goal. You had many leaders talking about dominion status, sort of self-rule, but still under the British crown. Bhagat Singh? No way. He was demanding Purna Swaraj, complete and total independence. But even that wasn't enough. He wanted a socialist, secular state where power wasn't just handed from British elites to Indian elites. He wanted power in the hands of the masses, the workers, the farmers. That was a whole different ballgame. So, the question is, if his ultimate goal was this revolution of ideas, why the bombs? Why the violence? Well, that brings us to Section 3, to make the deaf hear. His whole strategy was based on this idea called propaganda by the deed. The thinking is simple, really. Sometimes, one single dramatic action can shout louder than 1,000 speeches. It was all about creating a spectacle, something so loud and shocking that it would force everyone, the British rulers and a sleeping nation, to wake up and pay attention.
And his most famous act, the 1929 Assembly bombing, is the perfect example of this. This was not an attempt to kill anyone. The whole point was to protest these two really harsh new laws. So what they do? They threw a couple of low-impact bombs into an empty part of the hall to make a loud noise, not to cause carnage. The real weapon here wasn't the bomb, it was the leaflets they showered down explaining why they were doing it. And the final step? They didn't even try to escape. They just stood there, waiting to be arrested. It was pure political theater.
And getting arrested? That was a key part of the plan all along. Which brings us to Section 4, the courtroom as a stage. Because for Bhagat Singh, this trial was never about proving his innocence. It was about seizing the biggest stage of his life. Just listen to his words from that time. He said, "They may kill me, but they cannot kill my ideas. They can crush my body, but they will not be able to crush my spirit." I mean, wow. He knew he was going to die. He wasn't fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for his ideas to live on. He understood that his death could be even more powerful than his life. And just think about the reach he had. Every single newspaper in the country was reporting on this trial. So the courtroom literally became his microphone to the nation.
He didn't use his time to plead for his life. Instead, he used it to broadcast his vision for a free India to millions of people. He basically took the government's trial and turned it into his own platform.
And that brings us to the final part of his story and the beginning of his legacy. Section 5, a legacy in revolution.
He was executed by the British. He was just 23 years old. But, of course, his death wasn't the end. It was, in many ways, the beginning. He became this ultimate icon of revolutionary heroism and sacrifice. The ideas he championed, socialism, secularism, they got injected right into the heart of the independence movement. And to this day, he inspires generations of new activists. His image is still one of the most potent political symbols you'll find in modern India.
And this quote from one of his last letters just says it all, doesn't it? My life has been dedicated to the noblest cause. Therefore, there's no rest or worldly desire that can lure me now. That's it. That's the voice of someone who has given everything, absolutely everything, to a cause they believe is bigger than themselves.
So, we're left with a bigger question than the one we started with. It's not just terrorist or visionary. The real question is, what does his story mean for us today? How does the radical vision of a 23-year-old who demanded not just political freedom but total social justice, how does that challenge our own ideas of what it really means to be free?